go? Everyone's good? Just stand back a little bit. Tell me when. Yeah, good afternoon, Acting Deputy Commissioner Peter McKenna. Well, today we saw the significant protest on the Sydney Harbour Bridge, and to some they may well say it was quite successful in the fact that they got quite significant numbers. We're estimating up to around 90,000 people there. There's a reason we said we like to have time to plan for these protests. There is a reason why we have said all along we like to take the time to plan out for these protests, and that is public safety. Make no mistake, public safety was a real concern to us today. Whilst those numbers were far greater than what the organisers asked for with their Form 1, whilst the route that the Form 1 originally asked for could not be achieved, I'm really happy that the police on the ground, the police commander, ran an operation today where they had to make very big decisions very quickly to ensure people's safety. At points today, we were really concerned about a crowd crush. For example, we could not get those people, the significant size of that crowd, off that northern egress route without risking crowd crush. We could not allow those numbers to then egress into the northern side into those train stations without, again, that real risk of crowd crush. At one point there, we had to get messaging out, which we did, through our geotech system and from Polair to the people on the bridge to just say to stop and follow police directions. Speaking to some of the people who were on the bridge, whilst they were well behaved, it did cause some confusion. There were people still trying to move north, others stopping, and then we told people that we wanted them to move south, and we had to do that incrementally. Again, that was some confusion with people on the bridge, and at points there we were worried that they were going to come together. So this operation, from our point of view, was a success in that no one was hurt. No people were hurt, no police were hurt. But gee whiz, I wouldn't like to try and do this every Sunday at that short notice. There's a reason we need time to plan these things out, and I think going forward into the future, that has to be taken into consideration. We're very lucky today that the crowd was well behaved. We're very lucky that the organisers did listen to us, and thankfully we have had an operation whilst perilous at times, turned out that everyone has gone home safe. As the community, the protesters, and in particular my police. I might just hand over to the Police Commander, Mr. Johnson.
Thanks, sir. I can honestly say in my 35 years of policing, that was a perilous situation. I've never seen a more perilous situation. I was honestly worried that we were going to have a major incident with potential loss of life. And I just want to shout out to all of the police on the ground, the police that were working with me, the decisions we made on the run critically and quickly, and particularly the messaging we got together, I think went to a long way to averting that.
Do you want to hear from Transport first, and then we'll go to any questions?
Craig Moran, Executive Director Operations Management with Transport for New South Wales. I think the first thing I'd like to say is just to thank the people of Sydney who took the advice to avoid the area, to avoid non-essential travel. Yes, there was quite a bit of congestion, particularly on the road network of the Anzac Bridge. When the initial closure was put in place, we saw massive crowds that we had to work with police to manage just coming in to the protest at Wynyard earlier in the afternoon. And of course, with those crowds that were on the Harbour Bridge, we equally had concerns about how we could safely accommodate those numbers, particularly at North Sydney Station, and really supported the need to get them back towards the CBD, where we had more options to help get them home. Thank you.
I'll let the Police Commander talk to that.
concerned that that decision actually might lead to a crowd crush itself when sort of two forces combine?
Yeah, that was a very intense situation. We had more people than I'd ever seen in a small confined space. We had some tactical plans quickly in place in relation to how to manage that at the end point, which was the northern section, and we were really overwhelmed with numbers. So we had to really make a decision that was risky in itself to stop people with messaging, make sure they'd stopped, and then to turn around and go back the way they came. And I'd like to thank people for listening to that messaging and doing as we instructed and asked, and as we asked at the outset, because otherwise, I feared the worst.
Was that a contingency you had
Sorry,
in mind?
Tony, can you just mute your mic in between the questions?
Yep, sorry about that.
Was that a contingency you had in mind for today, or was that something that you guys picked up on the run?
It was a bit of both. We were doing a lot on the run at very short notice and in very short time frames.
Are there any thoughts on how you might move ahead with the format system into the future?
Look, at the moment after today, I'm just concentrating on what's just happened.
And sorry if I missed this at the start, but have you got an estimate for the crowd size? Some organisers saying up to 300,000 people.
And I think we're looking at around 90,000, I'd say, not confirmed.
Were there any incidents that you were aware of that AOS?
There's nothing significant. I haven't been fully briefed on the outcome. We're still moving people out of the city, but no, not at this stage. The people were generally well behaved, and thank you for complying with what we asked them to do.
Estimates that were provided by the PAG. How have you found working with them and Josh Lees throughout this week?
Sorry, I can't hear
So
you.
just working with Josh Lees and the Partisan Action Group, just coming into today, obviously, so there was an underestimate of the crowd size. Did you find working with them?
Look, in the circumstances, we did our best, and we were, we'll continue to have a working relationship, professional.
Is this something you're planning to think about that might happen going forward? I mean, they put another 4 months across the harbour.
At the moment, I'm still interested in just wrapping up today. The operation's still running. We're still clearing people out of the city.
Just want to make one more point, sorry, that, just understand, we are not anti-protest. We facilitate, over 1,500 protests in the city every year. We've been working with this group for the last 2 years and assisting them with the protest, but always taking public safety into consideration. Our whole issue today was never about the fact that they are protesting something that is so significant, and we understand it's significant in a lot of people's minds and hearts right around the world. Today was all about public safety for us and having the time to plan out a proper protest where we take safety into consideration. Quite clearly, today showed us that we had to scramble, we had to make snap decisions, we had to really think about how we could get people safely out of that confined space and back into the city safely, because it came very close to us having almost a catastrophic situation where we were really concerned about. But we are not anti-protest, we don't get into the politics of it, and we do understand it is a significant issue to people.
Was this the largest crowd that you're aware of across the bridge since 2022 month?
It's certainly the largest one both Adam and I have seen in our time here in Sydney. Thanks very much, everyone.
Sorry, sorry, hang on, I have a few questions. It's
What?
Tony Green from the ABC. I'm sorry I couldn't be there, but I do have a few questions I'd like to ask before we wrap this up.
Go ahead, mate.
If organisers want to march on the bridge again, would you resist?
Well, it's not about resisting or not resisting. It's certainly about assessing a Form 1 on its own merits, assessing the public safety aspects of the Form 1, what they want to achieve, how we could go about it, and we do that each and every time on its own merits. What I would say, if we get a Form 1 giving us 7 days notice, I can tell you now, after what happened today, certainly I would have grave concerns about allowing it to go ahead.
I appreciate that it wasn't enough time for police to organise it, for the protest to be completed in a safe way. How much time would you require?
Again, that would all depend on its own merits on the Form 1. I can't get into detail on that because the law actually says we have to consider each Form 1 on its own merits.
I understand technically they've satisfied their legal requirement, but practically it fell short today. And so I think it's an important question for the organisers to know, because over the last 2 years this movement has just grown, it hasn't kind of dwindled. So for their sake, how much time would the authorities need?
We haven't even debriefed this operation yet. There's still people we're moving out of the city. We'll have to sit down with our transport partners, government partners, certainly the police on the ground, and work through all of those issues.
Okay. The other question I have was the difference between how many people organisers said would attend and how many ultimately attended. Could you give me some understanding of that?
Well, the Form 1 said 10,000 people. Quite clearly today there was significantly more than that. We're estimating approximately 90,000 people, but give or take, that's a significant difference, especially when we have to plan a policing operation to ensure public safety.
My last question will be about the resourcing. What was needed to make this operation happen and happen safely?
So we had over 1,000 police in the field today, 1,000 police that had to give up their Sunday, come into work, and I want to thank them for their professionalism. I want to thank them for being out there all day in the rain, doing such a good job. And like Mr. Johnson said, I'd also like to thank the community for listening to the police to make sure no one got hurt and it was a safe event.
I think the motion around the event this week has actually served to sort of public relations or to make it actually more popular than the event otherwise.
Oh, I've got no comment on that. All I know is that the Supreme Court allowed this to go ahead, and therefore we follow the law of the day, and we supported that.
You used some strong language about the potential catastrophe that could occur. What sort of indicated to you that potential catastrophe was about to occur? I mean, obviously it was a bit of movement on the bridge, but there didn't seem to be any crushing at this stage.
Yeah, you weren't in the police command post, you weren't hearing from the police on the ground or the people who were on the ground at the time. I can tell you now, Mr. Johnson's been doing this sort of work for a long, long time. For him to say to me he had real and imminent concerns about a crowd crush, well, that'll do me.
Can you just talk us through some of what were the indicators of that imminent crowd crush?
You want to talk to it?
What was the question?
What were the indicators of some of that imminent crowd crush?
Well, we had 90,000 unexpected people, really, that we had to plan for with no exit point. So then, we need to then get them safely off the bridge. And there's risk involved in relation to that. But I will say that what we put in place worked.
Was that challenge was also experienced during the 2023 World Pride protest that went across the bridge?
I wasn't involved in the World Pride
All
protest.
good, guys. Let's go. Thank you.
Thank you.